Moving on to the cloud definition framework, you see the different deployment models within and we'll cover these in a little bit more detail but you have your three different cloud types, hybrid being a mixture of those two. The service models, whether it be SaaS, PaaS, or IaaS, and the different essential characteristics and then the common characteristics within those. The four deployment models being the private cloud infrastructure, and this is a service where either it's on-premise or off-premise. It really doesn't make a difference where this is located at, and it can be managed by yourself or by a third-party application. The key difference here is that the private cloud is for a sole organization. So whether it be that cloud is for Unver or it's for Precision Strip, but that particular cloud is only for their data and only for their processing power. And then you move on to the community cloud. And this is a shared infrastructure for a community that share the same concerns, whether it be a mission or same type of regulatory compliance. A large vendor up in Defiance, Ohio was RDSI. They were basically a cloud service provider providing IT for the banking industry in Ohio. They had like 80-some banks in Ohio that provided that service, and that was a cloud service. But that was more of a community cloud service because they all shared the same type of regulatory compliance. And then you move on to public cloud. This is sold to the public, mega scale infrastructure. Amazon, the cloud services, cloud storage that they have out there. It's just out there in the cloud. You have no idea where it's at, but you can get it back when you need it. And then the hybrid cloud, where it's just a mixture of two or more clouds, where each one of them still maintains its own entities, properties, but they have a standardized format to transfer data back and forth between the two. Moving on to the cloud service models. The first one is software as a service. And this is where the actual provider is providing to the consumer the software, whether it be BPOS online, the Business Productivity Office Suite, where you can get your office applications through the internet. Email is a very other common application for this, where you're doing, where your POP3 email or web-based email. The web-based email would actually probably be more of a truer term to the cloud offering because of the fact that you're just using your standard internet browser to access your email. And then we have the cloud platform as a service. And this is actually where you're providing, the provider is providing the tools, the hardware to do it, but it's using customer created applications. So whatever applications you may have developed in-house, they're written for their particular coding, and you can run those in the cloud in that particular fashion. And then as well too, you have your cloud infrastructure as a service. So these are SMS Pro Managed, rack space, where you're just running computing power. So I want 2 gigahertz of power, 5 gigs of RAM, 50 gigs of space, turn me up, let me run. And you provide everything else from that, your operating systems, your applications. They're just providing the hardware for you. The key thing to be considered to be part of the cloud is they must be deployed on top of a cloud infrastructure that has the key characteristics that we talked about. So the 5 key cloud characteristics. Number 1, it's going to be an on-demand service or self-service. Broad network access. Resource pooling with location independence so that you can have these resource pooling spread out across the geography. Rapid elasticity, so I can grow very fast. I need to be able to expand rapidly. And then as well too as being a measured service, so that it's utility type computing where you're getting charged for your usage. So where are we headed at for the cloud in 2011? Found some results or some history from CIO.com where they surveyed a number of CIOs, and in 2011, or coming up in 2011, it says 57% of the CIOs say economic conditions is not going to affect their want or desire to use cloud as a software or service. But and then on the same token, they turned around and said that 44% of them plan to increase spending in the cloud. So this is something that's becoming really heavily adopted and moving more and more into everybody's mainframe. So the big question, what does it do for SMBs? What are some of the positive outcomes of cloud services for small and medium businesses? One of the things that come to mind is fast deployment. If you're ramping up, maybe it's a seasonal type business that you run in the summertime where you have to add on additional people to handle the workload. On-demand provisioning of virtual desktops. Storage and applications can be set up. They're saying 240 times faster. I can see that in real world when you can take a desktop and have one on a thin client in a matter of minutes versus a couple hours in some cases. Reduced cost. Desktop management is less. There's less maintenance. You're using a cheaper thin client. I don't need to spend $700-800 on a PC. I can put a $200 or $300 thin client in place. And the endpoint virtualization is reducing the cost by as much as 17% per user. Redundancy is a key factor in the SMB business. I mean, even in the corporate or the Fortune 500 worlds, doing redundancy within your network was cost prohibitive, and in some cases, still cost prohibitive in the SMB space. If you got a 10-user network, but if you can't survive without your network, getting in redundancy into the point where you have complete failover and redundancy so that there's no data loss, it can be very cost prohibitive. And that's where we're moving into the cloud, where you're sharing that bandwidth and that data storage and all the resources at that cloud can give you that redundancy and resiliency that you may need in your type of business. Scalability, dynamic use of the resource pools. Again, that's one of those things, if you just can't go out and add a terabyte of storage to your business very quickly, whereas in the cloud services, churn me up, give me some more. I need more data, or I need more space. Then ease of use. And this is one of those things where cloud computing really can help hide that complexity, because if you don't have an IT person on staff, and that's where you're going to find in a lot of cases, when it be a small organizations, they don't have an IT person on staff, or it's the same person that's doing the controller function or the CFO, or whether that be the accounting department. It's a challenge for them to be able to keep up and maintain that, and as well too, it's cost prohibitive in a lot of cases. So bringing this in is ease of use, that if you're using a cloud service, they just need, whether it be virtual desktop access or internet access to provide those applications to them. And flexible and mobile. As today's world continues to evolve, you need to be able to provide your workers with access to any place, anywhere. As our company continues to evolve, we have a gentleman that wanted to move out of the local area, wanted to go to the Columbus, play with the big boys, but it was a great employee. We didn't want to lose him. Did a fantastic job for us, but what he did for us at the office, there was no need for him to be physically in our building. No need whatsoever. We can provide him with, remote desktop access, virtual desktop with an IP phone, everything at his home in Columbus. So he works out of his home in Columbus. The great part about that is I get a lot more work out of him, because he's still working at 6 o'clock at night, whereas before it was 5 o'clock and he was out the door. So it's pretty amazing with the flexible and mobile, the network access. And that's all been as we evolved in the internet age, and the accessibility to bandwidth that comes around, that makes that all possible. And then as well too, for all the tree huggers out there, no, I shouldn't say that, green. And that's very important. We've seen, just in our own environment, as we move to virtualization and cloud type services, that even if it's like spam filtering solution where you're having all your spam sorted out on the outside of the world, you're not consuming that internet pipe coming in. You're not consuming the power to do that. Years ago when we first started putting spam solutions in, you throw it in on a Windows XP, or actually a Windows 2000 box, 2000 Pro. Then it went to XP Pro, and then pretty soon that couldn't handle anymore, so you had to put a server OS in there. And before you knew it, that hardware couldn't handle it, so you had to throw it in on a server class machine that had a lot of RAM, a lot of processing power. That's all chewing up power for really no good reason, because we can send it to the outside world into the cloud and have that service handled a lot more effectively and much more cost effective in more of a green environment. So as we move into, oops, where's the rest of those guys? There they are. Okay, some of your examples of cloud-based applications. Of course, I got to throw our name up there a couple different times, but we do offer a number of services. Zix Corp. I don't know if any of you do email encryption, but that is a very powerful tool, and if you just have an organization that just needs a handful of users, they have a cloud-based solution that works very well. McAfee, we use McAfee on a regular basis for our email protection. It provides, we either use McAfee or we use the Forefront solution from Microsoft, depending on what the client needs are. But that again, that's that spam solution where you're doing it on the outside of your network instead of doing it inside. I'm sure everybody's heard of Gmail. There's probably 80% of you have a Gmail account in here. And as well too, Google Docs, Intuit, QuickBooks Online. That's very popular with our SMB clients. There are small clients that are using QuickBooks Online. WebEx, that's something I use daily. The WebEx with the WebEx Connect or the instant messaging, that's all part of it. Salesforce.com. Ironically, Salesforce.com has actually been doing this for over 10 years. And I think Cisco is probably one of their biggest clients, I would suspect, that uses Salesforce.com to provide that CRM package through a service utility computing model. And then Amazon Web Services, and then, of course, Microsoft Online Services. You're going to see a huge push with Microsoft coming out here in the future with their BPOS and Office 365, which is going to replace the BPOS. BPOS is the Business Productivity Online Suite. Your Word, your Excel, your Outlook, that's all available through a hosted version. And as they move into the Office 365 service, that's going to take over in that market. But probably one of the biggest things that that concerns me with the cloud services, your internet is key to you. So if you have a business application that you can't run your business without having access to that application, that's where cloud services may not be the answer. However, if you have a company that is geographically, separated by a number of plants around the world or a number of remote users, and an internet outage at one particular facility may hurt them by keeping the rest of the companies up, that may be a better solution, because they're going to be able to provide, in a lot of cases through a cloud-based service offering, redundant internet connections, redundant power, you name it, all within that piece to keep the bulk of your company up and running. So practical business solutions for today.